Well, Erin, we talked a bit about your story, mostly some of the struggles, and I really appreciate you just highlighting for folks and maybe normalizing what those experiences can look like. But just having heard the bits and pieces that I have that we haven't gotten to tonight, I wanted to make sure to take a moment to talk a little bit about what helped you find a little bit more like confidence and comfort, and what kinds of tools and strategies were so useful to you.
Right. So I've mentioned before, like that I took this I guess the task of re-educating myself because I realized that I had 30 something years of a miseducation in sexuality. So I honestly started listening to this show. I'm not just trying to like promote ACA content, but I genuinely listened to this show, and one of my first books that I got was Dr. Darrell Ray's book on
Hmm.
God and Sex, I believe it's called, or Sex and God. I can't remember the order
Yeah,
now.
sex and God.
It really triggered something for me that I needed to look into further. So it was essentially kind of just allowing that to naturally flow, like whatever thing was kind of piqued my interest. So like I read a lot of books. I got into Emily Nagoski, Justin Lay Miller, who has a bunch of interesting work around fantasies, and
Hmm.
Ian Kerner is another resource. And then there's a whole bunch of podcasts that have these people on as guests as well. Basically, re-educating myself about, first of all, what is some of the language used around sexuality now, what are some of the common struggles that people have in relationships, what are some common issues that cis women have in sexuality. So that's where like Emily Nagoski's book was really imperative for me, coming from just a total non-education about my own sexuality to her whole work around basically the female orgasm and female sexuality, and taking a pleasure based look at sexuality rather than just kind of like this goal of orgasm was a huge game changer for me. So just all of that, and it took time. It honestly it took a bit of, I call it almost like exposure therapy. I needed to
Hmm.
hear these things over and over again. Like you had mentioned earlier, and I had mentioned that like my brain was wired a certain way. I needed to hear these things and reinforce in it enough in my mind that whatever I was feeling, whatever kind of sexual feelings I was having, or urges or thoughts or whatever, were normal. I needed to hear that over and over and over again. And I needed to hear a lot of things. For me, I think learning comes a lot by hearing. So I listen to audiobooks, and I'll sit and I'll re-listen to the audiobooks, and I listen to podcasts, and I really take it all in and I normalize it for myself. And then from there, I obviously did a little self exploration. I took some time and I worked with both the new information I had from my sexual re education. I took also some of the trauma and therapy work I'd done over the last few years, combining things like cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness. And I tried to combine them. So I tried to be really present in my body, not escape or disassociate, which is something that I had kind of been prone to in the past, and just mindfully work through these things about what feels good to me, what do I like, what am I into. And then, I mean, that was something that I did also, like, obviously on a solo basis, and then I also expressed that to my husband, to my partner as well. So it was a process, and it was scary, honestly.
Yeah. No, it really can be. We talked a couple of weeks ago to Callie Lawrence about the significance of mindfulness in sex, but I think you're hitting on a really important message here. In a couple of weeks, we're gonna do a entire episode with a sex coach around the topic of masturbation, and I
Mhm.
just really want to stress in the couple of minutes we have now that if you feel like you are masturbating too much, or that it would be irresponsible for you to take a entire day, let alone a half an hour, to like sit down and masturbate in a way that is mindful and intentional and pleasure oriented and slow, there is no better medicine for getting to know your body and becoming comfortable with what you are interested in, with how to rewire that relationship between your disgust reaction and your pleasure reaction, and all
Mhm.
of the different connections and nerve endings between your legs and everywhere else in your body. I would really challenge people to make some space for that, particularly if they are at a moment in their lives where they're feeling maybe a little curious, maybe a little uncomfortable about their sexuality.
Yeah. Like and like I really want to emphasize that you actually mean that. Like take some time and schedule some time with yourself.
Hmm.
Like sit down with yourself and have a date by yourself and understand yourself better. Like that's the best place to start, right? I remember I would hear things like that, but I never really like really took it seriously. But like, no, actually spending, I'm gonna like I had nothing going on this morning. I'm gonna take the morning and I'm actually gonna like that's the thing that's my task for the morning. Or like that's when I have time by myself, like that is what my goal is today, is to understand myself better and to come to some sort of clarity on what I like, what I don't like, and then obviously use that in the future for like you said, it's data to like
Hmm.
take forward. So
Yeah. On an unrelated note, I will be unavailable Saturday most of the morning and probably into the afternoon. So if anybody needs me, go ahead and get in touch with me now.
Perfect, perfect. I'm seeing a bubble bath in your future, Christy.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
that'll be part of it. There'll be some meditation and some yoga, whatever those
Yeah.
other self-care things I said were.
Okay. Okay. Rose petals. Is it going to be a red wine or a white?
Ooh, I don't know. We'll see. It's pretty hot down here, so maybe
Yeah.
rosé.
A rosé. Okay. Okay. Hey, there's nothing wrong with a nice rosé.
Hmm.
I love my girly drinks.
There's nothing
Sweet.
wrong with a nice rosé.
No, absolutely not.